So I just started One Piece, and unfortunately for my free time, I absolutely loved it. I took notes, so here's my review of Volume 1. Let's start with Luffy stabbing himself in the face in page 2. Structurally, that scene is doing something very specific. It is immediately established that Luffy's idea of strength is not theoretical, he's not trying to look brave, he's literally willing to injure himself to prove his conviction. It is reckless, it is childish, and it is also completely sincere. Oda makes it clear here immediately that the protagonist is someone who moves first and just kind of expects life to meet him there. And we have got to talk about Shanks. I know that's not Luffy's dad. That is literally his dad. Narratively, that is such a father figure introduction, and I love him immediately. He loses his arm, he doesn't blame Luffy. Yes, the hat scene is like very sentimental, but it also establishes that dreams are transferable, right? That they can be passed down. The hat scene becomes a physical symbol of expectation, which is wild because we are one volume in and dealing with like the idea of generational ideals. For a series about pirates, I think it's a surprisingly soft thematic core. And I would be remiss to not talk about design choices. Helmeppo looks deeply unfortunate. Captain Morgan's axe arm is horrifying and grotesque and literally disgusting. It grossed me out of the page, actually, but that's the whole point. His authority is literally welded into his body, and his power is blunt force. What I appreciate about this is Oda is immediately making morality visible in this volume. You don't have to guess who abuses power, you can literally immediately see it. And Zoro and Kuina, I don't know if that's how you say her name, but I genuinely did not expect the manga to introduce this idea of gender inequality through swordsmanship. Kuina's whole conflict is a limitation both on biology and just imposed social norms and beliefs, and her immediate death is frustrating. But from a character writing perspective, it makes Zoro's ambition so much more than just, I want to be strong. You know, it gives him layers because he's trying to accomplish and carry someone else's dream. And I think that's pretty layered for Volume 1. I have to talk about Nami for a second. She's not very visible in this chapter, she's a few pages at the end, but she's very competent and immediately distrustful off the bat, which makes Luffy's recruiting pattern very interesting to me. Zoro didn't want to be a pirate, Nami doesn't trust pirates, and yet they immediately want to follow him. Luffy's recruitment is not based on shared ideology, he recruits based on recognition, which I think is an interesting thing to note. I feel like he very much sees who people are beyond their current circumstances and then just assumes they'll rise to that. It's definitely naive, but it obviously works. Volume 1 feels super chaotic on the surface, but underneath I think there's a very clear thesis about freedom versus control. Shanks represents earned strength, Morgan represents earned authority, and Luffy represents the self-defined freedom, I would say. And somehow this all happens in like 200 pages. So yes, I started this because of peer pressure, but I fear I'm about to emotionally commit to something that is extremely long. See you next time for my overanalysis of Volume 2.